को इंडिया की बेस्ट परफॉर्मिंग कंपनीज का एक एक्सपोजर मिले, राइट? ऑन एन एवरेज यहाँ पे जस्ट बिफोर वी गेट डीपर, द फर्स्ट इज अ रेगुलर फंड, देन वी हैव अ डायरेक्ट फंड एंड बेंचमार्क जिसके अगेंस्ट हम कंपेयर कर सकते हैं, राइट? सो रेगुलर और डायरेक्ट में लोगों को जस्ट समझ में आ जाए डिफरेंस. So broadly speaking, regular and direct funds, they invest in absolutely the same place. The only difference is that in a regular fund एक कमीशन एक एजेंट होता है तो उसका आपको कमीशन पे करना पड़ता है, राइट? There was a time when doing this made sense because investing was difficult and बहुत सारा प्रोसेस होता था, बट टुडे इट इज नॉट सो. तो जैसे हम आगे जाएंगे आप देखेंगे that across all of the categories that we are talking about, regular funds have consistently underperformed. About 1 to 1.5% का underperformance always रहता है. My very limited point here is, आज अगर आप देखिए तो डायरेक्ट फंड में, डायरेक्ट फंड थिंक अबाउट अपस्टॉक्स, हमारे ऐप पे सारे म्यूचुअल फंड्स डायरेक्ट हैं. हम एक इंटरमीडियरी का काम करते हैं, वी टेक योर मनी एंड वी गिव इट टू द फंड हाउस. इसमें हमें कोई कट नहीं मिलता, तो आप वहां पे कमीशन बचाते हैं. बट बाय एंड लार्ज अगर आप देखेंगे इन द लास्ट 1 to 3 years, large cap में the fund performance has actually been good. They have managed to outperform their benchmarks as well. अब मैं बात कर रहा हूं डायरेक्ट फंड्स की. ओवर अ लॉन्गर टर्म आप देखेंगे फंड परफॉर्मेंस इज ऑलमोस्ट इक्वल टू बेंचमार्क. यहां पे एक और डिस्क्लेमर, ऑल द परफॉर्मेंस इज आफ्टर फीस. तो ऐसे नहीं है कि हम कंपैरिजन लाइक टू लाइक नहीं कर रहे. सवाल ये आता है, द क्वेश्चन दैट कम्स इज कि अगर आप एक फंड में इन्वेस्ट करके आप रेगुलरली चेक करके यू आर गोइंग टू अर्न व्हाट इज ऑलमोस्ट इक्वल टू द बेंचमार्क, द क्वेश्चन इज शुड यू स्टिल बी डूइंग दैट, राइट? आप जब एक फंड में, एक एक्टिव फंड में इन्वेस्ट करते हैं तो आप रिस्क लेते हैं, और जब आप एक सिंपल बेंचमार्क या सिंपल इंडेक्स में इन्वेस्ट करते हैं तो वो रिस्क आपका कम हो जाता है, टेक्निकली आपका फीस भी कम होगा. Second thing one must realize, जैसे India's economy becomes larger, India share market becomes bigger, लोग ज्यादा मार्केट में पार्टिसिपेट करते हैं, लोग इन्वेस्ट करते हैं. आप सबको आइडिया होगा कि सिप फ्लोज जो है एवरी मंथ दे आर इंक्रीजिंग, राइट? उतना पार्टिसिपेशन इंडियन मार्केट्स में बढ़ रहा है. द पॉइंट इज, when that kind of money comes into the market, it becomes more and more difficult for a fund manager to generate what is called as alpha. Alpha का मतलब the difference in the funds return. So in this case आप ले लीजिए 16% here, 16% ही सॉरी 16% हियर, 15%. इनका जो डिफरेंस है, द 1.2% इज द अल्फा दैट हैज बीन जनरेटेड बाय द फंड मैनेजर. बट जैसे पैसा और एंड और आता है, जैसे आपका एसेट बेस बढ़ता है, generating that alpha becomes difficult, right? So investors should be very careful about it. The great thing about this still is you get exposure to India's best companies. And अगर आपका व्यू है that India is going to become the next big thing, India will keep growing in the next 15-20 years, this is one of the best places to get that exposure, right? These are the 5 large schemes that have done very well. These are on the basis of 5-year performance. तो जो top 5 schemes हैं मैंने आपके लिए यहाँ पे populate की है. Obviously, I want to be very clear, none of this is a recommendation. ओके यहाँ पे कोई भी एक रिकमेंडेशन नहीं है. और आप ये भी देखिए कि जो टॉप 3, ये जो लास्ट की 2 स्कीम्स है, राइट? अगेन कौन सी स्कीम्स है, किस फंड हाउस की है, कि आप विच फंड हाउस दे बिलोंग टू इज नॉट द पॉइंट, बट ये जो है इनका परफॉर्मेंस आप 5-year एवरेज परफॉर्मेंस से कंपेयर करें तो यू विल सी दैट दे हैव गिवन रिटर्न्स very closer to the benchmark. So as time keep going by, because these are large cap schemes, you see that performance starts to come closer to the benchmark, right? So just food for thought. Again, still I maintain some of the safer schemes get access to India's best companies. Again, the question is, agar aap ye karne wale hain or long term performance is closer, the benchmark and the fund average performance is close, why not just choose a benchmark, yeah, or a Nifty 50 index, or choose an index fund. जहां पे आपको कॉस्ट कम है, रिस्क भी ज्यादा कम है। लार्ज एंड मिड कैप फंड्स, सो इसमें बेसिकली ये कहाँ करते हैं, तो 35 to 35% ये लार्ज एंड मिड कैप में डेफिनेटली करते हैं। द बैलेंस 30% द फंड मैनेजर हैज द डिस्क्रेशन। तो आप क्लियरली देख सकते हैं कि इनका जो परफॉर्मेंस है, जस्ट टू रिमाइंड ऑल ऑफ यू, लार्ज कैप में अराउंड 15% के आसपास था फॉर द 10 year नंबर, यहाँ पे 17 है। अगेन हियर आई वांट यू टू नोटिस दैट रेगुलर फंड्स आर कंसिस्टेंटली गिविंग यू लोअर रिटर्न्स, राइट? वो कमीशन की वजह से अप टू 1% आपका रिटर्न कम है। दीज हैव डन वेरी वेल। ऑब्वियसली जैसे मिड कैप कंपनीज ऐड होते हैं, इस इनमें जो डिस्क्रेशन है, सॉरी, जो रिस्क है, वो रिस्क डेफिनेटली बढ़ता है। The thing about this is कि 30-35% the fund manager has to be invested in mid cap, right? अगर उन्हें लगता है कि mid cap में correction भी आएगा, they don't have the mandate to move away from it. Obviously they can increase the large cap allocation, of course they can, but some amount of mid cap allocation is always there. अगेन टॉप 5 schemes दैट आर देयर, एंड यहां पे आप देखेंगे कि इनका जो परफॉर्मेंस है इज मच फर्दर अवे, तो अबाउट 16% का जो एवरेज है मिड कैप परफॉर्मेंस का, सॉरी अबाउट दैट, जो 14%, सॉरी, ये जो 16% एवरेज परफॉर्मेंस है, यू सी दैट आपको द रेंज ऑफ द टॉप 5 फंड्स इज बिटवीन 19 and 20, बिकॉज मिड कैप स्टॉक्स आ जाते हैं, वॉलेटिलिटी बिल्ड हो जाती है। द क्वेश्चन देन इज, और व्हाट हैपेंस इज, फंड मैनेजर कितना एलोकेट करते हैं, आर दे एबल टू टाइम द परफॉर्मेंस बेटर, आर दे एबल टू मैनेज दैट फंड बेटर, स्टॉक सिलेक्शन, स्टॉक टाइमिंग स्टार्ट्स टू टेक अ important role in this case. Coming to flexi cap performances, flexi caps basically they can invest about 65% in equity. Baki they can they are allowed to change allocations, but there is no restriction. आप small, mid, large में कहाँ पे भी कर सकते हो. You get a blend of different market capitalizations, and the fund manager has a choice here. अगर उनको लगता है कि रिस्क बढ़ने वाला है, then they are able to try and diversify away. Across all of this, आप एक चीज पे प्लीज फोकस कीजिए कि ये जो डायरेक्ट फंड्स है और जो बेंचमार्क है, at different times you will see that either the fund has underperformed the benchmark, और जैसे हमने लार्ज कैप में देखा था, the performance is very close by, right? ये आप प्लीज नोटिस कीजिए, बिकॉज वन ऑफ द थिंग्स दैट मैटर्स मोस्ट when you are buying an active mutual fund is your choice of the fund. क्या आपने फंड मैनेजर पे रिसर्च किया था? क्या आपने थोड़ा बहुत, आपको सेक्टर पे व्यू, आपका जो फंड डायरेक्शनली जहां इन्वेस्ट कर रहा है, वो यू मॉनिटरिंग दैट? जस्ट एक बार फंड में इन्वेस्ट करके to think that all your responsibilities over is the wrong way. It is still your money. Yes, आप active decision नहीं लेते, but 6 months, 1 year to keep track of performance becomes very, very important. Right? I'll just quickly stop here. अगर कोई thought, कोई comment है, I will check that, but otherwise we can take a move. Okay, so let me just quickly see. Okay, चलिए. With that, let us continue. We now come to the top 5 flexi cap funds, right? All of these are there. Parag Parikh ka jo flexi cap fund hai, this had become very popular. By the way, some of these flexi cap funds also invest in stocks abroad, so if anybody is looking for exposure there. However, there are a lot of other flexi caps funds that can also be considered. किसी एक फंड का historical return पे एंकर होना is not a great idea. Please keep evaluating your fund performance. Multi-cap scheme. So here, see, they have, unlike flexi cap, here they will also invest in small, mid, and large. But 25, 25, 25 इनका small, large और mid में minimum allocation होना ही चाहिए, right? The balance 25 the fund manager can play with. Again, just the way I was explaining in the large and mid cap section, if the fund manager sees a small cap crash coming, he or she still does not have that much of a choice. Can they buy safer small cap stocks? Yes, they can. But can they exit it completely? Then that is not technically possible. They are stuck with small and mid cap as well. Similarly, on the other hand, if they see a massive rally in small caps, can they increase small cap exposure? Of course they can. But large cap ka jo 25% hai, that will always remain. The Sorry about that. The idea here is that आपको एक बैलेंस्ड परफॉर्मेंस मिले, कंप्लीटली रिस्क न्यूट, मतलब it's not a complete risk product. The risk can change, but there is also an angle of balance where large cap is there to balance out your performance, right? But please remember, although there is a balance, these are still equity funds. Risk still remains. Risk comparatively कम हो जाता है, but risk always remains, right? Top 5 multi-cap funds in the ये again last 5 year performance पे है. Repeating myself here that this is not a recommendation of any kind, just putting out the names of the schemes there, right? Mid cap funds, very, very popular of late. People have started to really really amp up their mid cap portfolio. उनको लगता है performance great आता है. But I want you to notice one thing here. Across all the periods, ये देखिए, all the periods, the benchmark has done a little better than even the direct funds. Okay, you took the risk and yet your returns were not great, or they were great, but they were not as great as the benchmark. Now, again, to be very, very upfront on this one, to make sure we are all on the same page, Amphi publishes data of the funds every day. So they publish 1 year, 3 year, 5 years. So I have taken point to point. All of this data is as on the 19th of Feb. I have taken point to point returns. Okay. Uh, that said, a 5 year or a 10 year time period is big enough कि अगर कोई छोटा मोटा चैलेंज आया है, the fund can come out of it. So a point to point return is not necessarily something, it is a correct way to look at the performance is what I am trying to say. Just to be very clear, mid cap companies, so large cap is the top 100, mid cap is 101 to 250. Obviously, returns are so much better than large cap, but it comes at a great risk. In this case, across the board, you have seen that performance has suffered, and you have earned less than the benchmark. One more important reason why tracking portfolio performance becomes very important. Top 5 funds, I was personally just again pointing out, very surprised to see a Mahindra fund here. मैंने पर्सनली बहुत टाइम से इनके किसी फंड को स्टडी नहीं किया, तो मोतीलाल, निपॉन, Edelweiss are all been there. They've been. Mahindra is just surprising, but found something different, so highlighting it for everybody's reference as well. Finally, small cap. Everybody wants to participate in this and try to make greater returns, try to make the best returns. But please remember, these are small cap companies. They are 251 and niche ka companies, right? The idea is that risk here is very high. आप जो time period देख रहे हैं, if you think about it, it is the time period when markets have gone up one way, right? Markets have had a phenomenal time, and you can see that in this performance. But please remember, risk here is very high, right? So अगर आप choose कर रहे हैं investment, please choose the right fund manager with something like this. Bandhan Small Cap Fund, I've heard a lot about it in the recent days, have yet to study the fund, but again, a different company I saw here, so just pointing it out for all of you. Now, फाइनली आई जस्ट वांट टू पॉइंट दिस आउट टू यू, जैसे मैं आपको प्रेजेंटेशन में बता रहा था दैट चूजिंग द फंड मैनेजर एंड स्टेइंग ऑन टॉप ऑफ योर पोर्टफोलियो इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. तो ये देखिए, अक्रॉस ऑल द कैटेगरीज व्हाट आई हैव डन इज नोटेड द 5 year परफॉर्मेंस. ये बेंचमार्क का एवरेज परफॉर्मेंस है. अक्रॉस एवरी कैटेगरी मैंने कितने स्कीम स्टडी किए थे ये भी आपके पास है, और कितने अंडर परफॉर्मर्स है. right? So I want you to notice that across the board, with the exception of small cap, surprisingly, across the board, almost 40 to 50%, and mid cap may to about 62% of the funds have underperformed their benchmark, right? Depending on which time you take, you will get different numbers for this. But by and large, everybody will agree that about 50 to 60% of active mutual funds tend to underperform, right? My numbers are slightly smaller, but the point is, I want to highlight the fact again that as money in the fund, as money in India starts to increase, it is difficult for fund managers to keep finding the areas जहां पे दे कैन जनरेट एक्स्ट्रा अल्फा, राइट? एक ही स्टॉक में आप बार बार पैसा लगाएंगे, इट बिकम्स अ स्टॉक दैट एवरीबडी नोज इज इन्वेस्टिंग इन, then to get that additional alpha becomes very, very challenging. Just something to be on top of and be aware of. Direct versus regular, I have said this when I was explaining, but ye dekhiye, for 1 year, 3, 5 and 10, how much is the difference in the returns that you are getting, right? So about 1.2 to 1.5% ka aap return miss out kar rahe hain in direct and regular funds. What have I done? I have taken all the categories, taken their average and just seen the difference. That's all. और ये आपके लिए एक लो हैंगिंग फ्रूट है. On the face of it, 1% may not seem that much, but think about it, this is compounded return. Every year, if you miss out 1% over 30 or 25, 30 years, you will have missed out almost 32 to 35% of returns, and that is a lot. So just again, to make sure everybody understands, go back a few years, 10, 15 years, there was always this uncle at your house जो आपके घर आते थे, फॉर्म भर के जाते थे, would go and invest on your parents' behalf, would maintain all the accounts. That is absolutely at that point great service that was being provided. उस सर्विस का वो आपसे ये कमीशन लेते थे. But आज with apps like Upstox, all of the mutual funds are available on the app. अगर आपको कुछ नहीं समझता तो the explanation is provided to you right there, and investing is very, very simple. There was a time you had to fill out a lot of things. Today it's not that, it's simply a button click. So my point is, get an investment advisor if you don't understand something. Obviously no questions there, but अगर आप अवॉइड कर सकते हैं तो आप ये इतना रिटर्न जो सिंपली गिव अवे कर रहे हैं, आप इसको कैपिटलाइज कर सकते हैं, कैप्चर कर सकते हैं, राइट? Hybrid funds, they are very in vogue right now. People want to invest it because you get a balance of debt and equity. So again, aggressive hybrid. So think, to my mind, these are quasi large and mid cap funds only. Of course, I understand large and mid cap don't invest in debt, but they have a very large allocation to equity and debt. The fund manager can obviously move around categories as risk comes through, but somewhere between your large cap fund and a debt fund, these reside very nicely. तो अगर आपको simply एक large cap में नहीं invest करना, आपको simply debt में नहीं invest करना, you can pick these. The reason I bring in large and mid cap also is the fund manager does have ability to actually go through different market caps. They can choose to. तो आप देखेंगे कि इनका जो रिटर्न है, ये लार्ज कैप फंड जहां पे हमारा एवरेज 15% का था, उससे थोड़ा कम है, बिकॉज आप डेट का एक एलिमेंट लेकर आते हैं. बट थिंक अबाउट times like this, right? Think about what has happened since January and the market keeps collapsing. At that point, to have some kind of debt backing जो आपका रिटर्न को बैलेंस कर देता है, is actually a great thing, right? Again, as always, some of the most popular hybrid schemes. Again, Mahindra makes appearance here as well. Just checking the comment if there is any thought, any question. Okay, no problem. Equity saving schemes slightly different. So they invest in equity in debt and in arbitrage. Arbitrage matlab the fund manager has a choice. If they think that they are buying able to buy a stock expensive here and cheaper somewhere else, they will buy at the cheaper place and sell at the more expensive place. They will try and take positions there. To a certain extent इसमें F&O का angle भी आ जाता है, where they will try to take advantage of any price difference and close the gap. uh, Debt and arbitrage both technically provide you with some amount of savings. Obviously अगर आप इनका long term return देखेंगे तो it is not as impressive. You can get a 10-12% में आप gold invest में return कर सकते हैं, right? Debt funds give about, sorry, debt instruments give anywhere between 7 to 9% returns. So in that case, to my mind, their performance has not been as commendable as you would like for it to be, but they definitely serve a purpose. However, returns have unfortunately not been as supportive, right? The top 5 schemes again for everyone. Multi-asset allocation can choose equity, debt, gold, real estate, anything, right? They have their asset allocation is their it is their call, it is their wish, whichever one they see the most. To a certain extent, that's great. But if you see the 1 and 3 year performance, you see that the funds and the benchmarks have given almost equal performance. Returns have unfortunately could have been more encouraging. Over a 5 year period, they definitely are. 10 year is not here knowingly, because when I downloaded the data, आप across the board 10 year के numbers नहीं थे, कुछ ही schemes के थे, and they would have skewed the answers, so I have not included them. Think about it. What has boosted the 1 year performance? ये इतना push आया कहाँ से है? तो अगर आप last year का market देखेंगे, gold has been a stellar, commodities have been stellar investments, and these guys have been able to take advantage of that, right? So they gave you the equity exposure, they gave you some debt benefit, and right now they were also actually even able to lever on the gold ka thing. Can a large cap fund do this? Can a large and mid cap fund do this? Yeah, they can invest in equity. They may not invest in gold as a commodity, but they can invest in gold stocks that have to do with gold. They can invest in stocks that have to do with steel or copper, and they can still give you returns. Absolutely, yes. इनका difference ये आता है कि with debt, with commodities being there, आपको एक बैलेंस मिल जाता है, राइट? सो एज यू सी दैट अबाउट 10% इनमें होना ही चाहिए इनका. तो जब वो पोर्शन आ जाता है तो आपका रिटर्न थोड़ा कम डेफिनेटली आपको लगता होगा, बट it is also helping you bring down some amount of risk. As always, top 5 funds. Finally, this is the last category of dynamic asset allocation. Across again they can choose across market caps, sorry, across asset classes, and there is no there is no limitation. They can choose whatever they want to, and they can adjust their positions basis market momentum. There is complete flexibility for the fund managers here. Again, top 5 funds. नाउ सेम जो हाइब्रिड कैटेगरी में है, हमने जो लार्ज और सॉरी जो इक्विटी कैटेगरी में देखा था, जस्ट चेकिंग द नंबर ऑफ अंडर परफॉर्मर्स सेम ऑन द बेसिस ऑफ द 5 year थिंग. तो यहाँ पे आप देखेंगे दैट द नंबर ऑफ अंडर परफॉर्मर्स इज मच लेसर. ओके, आई वांट टू स्ट्रेस हियर कि इक्विटी में क्या आप ज्यादा रिटर्न कमा सकते हैं, एब्सोल्युटली, but you take more risk. Second, you never know if the scheme you have chosen will constantly always be outperforming or not, right? Hybrid में क्या आपका रिटर्न थोड़ा कम होता है, definitely, but so is the risk, and the funds are able to, it seems that the funds are able to manage better, right? So please सिर्फ रिटर्न पे फोकस करना is a very wrong thing. Risk के numbers unfortunately on an industry wide itna is not something you get upfront. Otherwise I would have been very happy to put that up as well. But the point is that if you want to, right, hybrid funds may look like they are offering lesser returns, but they definitely offer some advantages as well. Finally, the last part that I would like to discuss is how would you build a mutual fund portfolio. Typically, anything that is short term, less than 3 years, equity is not a 3 year asset class. Please stay away from that. Medium and long term is where hybrid and equity funds start to come out and they become valuable. ये सबको पता होता है, but unfortunately, people have invested in equity for a 3 year point of view also. And when they do not make the returns, you will find that they somehow seem disappointed. Important points to remember: please avoid holding more than 10 funds, okay, as lesser if possible. जस्ट बिकॉज आप म्यूचुअल फंड में 100 रुपया 200 रुपया डाल के इन्वेस्ट कर सकते हैं, 10-15 फंड होल्ड करने में देर इज नो सेंस. You will no longer be able to track them. You will no longer be able to stay reasonably monitor their performance. It is a very, very bad idea. Second, please check if you're truly diversified. People buy two different funds and they think, अरे मैंने एक flexi cap लिया है, एक multi cap लिया है. But at that point in time, are you truly diversified? There are a lot of online tools available where you can compare the funds asset overlap and make sure कि आपका जो अचीव जो गोल था कि एक फंड का पर्पस ये है, दूसरे फंड का पर्पस अलग है, इज एक्चुअली गेटिंग मेट, राइट? सो प्लीज प्लीज मेक श्योर यू आर ट्रूली डाइवर्सिफाइड. एज आई वाज सेइंग, रिमेंबर, जैसे जैसे AUM बढ़ता है, फंड्स बिकम इंडेक्स, क्लोजेट इंडेक्स फंड्स. थिंक अबाउट अ स्मॉल कैप फंड, राइट? अब आप स्मॉल कैप फंड में पैसा डालते गए डालते गए डालते गए, एंड यू विल हियर अ लॉट ऑफ टाइम्स वेयर फंड मैनेजर्स स्टॉप टेकिंग मनी because the stocks that they are investing in do not have that kind of liquidity, and so they will have to either stop investing, or then they may have to, diversify a little more outside small cap than they are allowed to or than they are comfortable with large funds. As money keeps growing up, if your fund is investing in almost the similar 50-80 companies that are there in the broader market, then hey, are you really buying a mutual fund? Are you buying an index fund? राइट? आप फीस तो अभी भी एक्टिव मैनेजमेंट का दे रहे हैं, बट जो बाई कर रहे हैं, प्लीज मेक श्योर यू गेट what you chose to purchase. Please review your mutual fund performance every 6 months to 1 year. Make sure your goal, your investment is aligned with a goal. अगर आपका इन्वेस्टमेंट डेट रिस्क से प्रोटेक्शन था और आप देख रहे हैं कि आपके फंड मैनेजर्स थोड़े अग्रेसिव हो रहे हैं, प्लीज चेंज द फंड. Always remember, the right reason to sell an investment is not because आप bored थे. It is if you have definitely found a next best opportunity, then that makes sense. If your fund by itself is not doing well, that makes sense. And with mutual funds, the best thing is you are ekdam immediately you are able to compare it to a benchmark, right? And if the fund has consistently been underperforming the benchmark, it is something you want to maybe rebalance if the asset allocation has drifted away from your goal. With mid or small cap, like I was saying, जैसे जैसे पैसा बढ़ता है, they may not be able to invest it. So make sure you are buying a true to label fund. Sometimes it's not always the fund manager's mistake. The amount of money versus the liquidity in the market, they don't have a choice. Risk, स्टैंडर्ड डिविएशन, शार्पे रेशियो, प्लीज डोंट थिंक लाइक दैट. अगर आपका पोर्टफोलियो एंटायरली म्यूचुअल फंड पोर्टफोलियो है, तो जस्ट लाइक अ स्टॉक, प्लीज चेक योर रिस्क एपेटाइट. ओके, अगर आपका पोर्टफोलियो कल 20% गिर गया एंड it's going to hamper your sleep or hurt your goals, then your fund allocation is wrong. Okay, choose funds that are more stable, स्लो एंड. देखिए, मार्केट में जितना लंबा टाइम स्पेंड करेंगे, दैट मच मोर इज द रिटर्न. सो स्लो एंड स्टेडी विंस द रेस. इट्स अ टेस्ट मैच, नॉट अ T20. सो इवन इफ यू चूज मोर फंड्स जहां पे आपका रिस्क कम है, then that is nothing wrong till you are comfortable with the portfolio's positioning. It is able to meet your appetite and it is able to meet your goal. Sectoral funds, a very important question to do or not to do, right? There are some very hardcore people who say sector funds kabhi nahi karne chahiye. There are some who really like to ride the thing. But let me warn you, I don't have performance for sector funds because there are some 200 funds and all of them don't even have a standard benchmark. So difficult to compare performance like that. But let me here tell you a few things when you are buying a sector fund. What is it that you are looking for? So first please realize, अगर आप एक सेक्टर पे मूवमेंट कर रहे हैं ना, तो आप एक मैक्रो बेट ले रहे हैं, राइट? अगर आप आईटी पे यहाँ पे जैसे मैंने है, सो मे बी यू थिंक यूएसडी आईएनआर में टर्न बेनिफिट, the foreign companies will actually increase their tech capex. You are betting on that, and then you are betting कि सेक्टर को एक सेक्युलर टेलविंड आएगा. लाइक एआई इज अ ग्रेट आइडिया राइट नाउ. Everyone is bullish across, sorry, bearish across IT because of AI, right? Are you seriously telling me you cannot look and try and think कि यार कोई एक दो स्टॉक तो विनर होगा? Does it really make sense कि आपने पूरे सेक्टर को राइट ऑफ कर दिया है for something that is not necessarily in their control, but they are still working very hard to address and change it, right? These are companies that have been around for ages. They have seen recessions. They will figure something out as well. But across the board एक view है. Take banking as an example. If interest rates go down and liquidity improves, yes, banking will be better suited. The performance should improve. But आपका जो कॉल है वो बैंक के फंडामेंटल्स, बैंक के लोन ग्रोथ, बैंक के एनपीए निम्स उस पर नहीं है, आप एक सेक्टर पर ले रहे हैं. Second thing, and this is where most people get hurt, a sectoral cycle can run longer than your patience, right? Most people, whether we like it or not, invest and want the return the next day. It does not work like that. Earning that return takes some time. Point is, sometimes it is even decades, right? So there is a very famous fund manager called Mr. Prashant Jain, right? He used to be a fund manager at HDFC, one of India's top fund managers, used to run India's largest large cap fund. उनका एक बहुत फेमस ये सा केस स्टडी है where he thought that PSU banks will now turn around, and he dramatically changed his allocation towards that. The guy who has managed to give more than 20% returns for years and years, for this one time period of his performance, I think it was about 6 7 years, I could be wrong here, but for a good amount of time period he actually underperformed the market, right? He kept believing that his time would come. His time did actually come. His call was actually true. He was just early to it. सो आपका उतना पेशेंस नहीं रहता, इन्वेस्टर्स का उतना पेशेंस नहीं रहता टू एक्चुअली वेट फॉर द साइकिल टू किक इन. Themes can die, right? So abhi, for instance, AI was a big thing. Think from COVID to now, everyone wanted IT, and suddenly now with AI, everyone has written it off. Whether it's right or wrong is a separate question. But एक पूरा theme people have written off. आप बोलेंगे नहीं, logically does not make sense. Maybe not. But the market has come out and said that this is not something I want to stay. Will you actually stick around there? Telecom was once a great investment. Today, profitability is such a challenge. There are only three players, but despite that, in India, it is such a challenge. Point is, just because एक थीम का टाइम आया था, वो थीम का टाइम सनसेट भी होगा. And most importantly, with sector things, you have to be right on two counts, on the sector and the manager. You have to pick the right sector, enter at the right time, choose the right manager, and time your exit. And that is not something, to get all four things right is very, very, very challenging. Let me say it that way. The point of this is, अगर आपको किसी सेक्टर आपको अच्छा लगता है, you would like to ride that, a lot of equity funds, if you have spotted a trend, a lot of fund managers would have spotted the trends as well. So you can go to funds where जहां पे they are increasing that allocation, you can get some returns from there as well. Yes, their returns will be lower than a pure play sector fund, but it will come with a hedge. अगर वो सेक्टर का टाइम टर्न होता है, द फंड मैनेजर इन अ लार्ज कैप, लार्ज एंड मिड कैप फंड कैन change the allocation. here the guys are stuck, right? The point of a mutual fund portfolio is to try and build wealth for you, is to try and ensure up help you get to financial freedom. While it is great that we trust the fund manager and we give them control, regular monitoring is on us. If we are not able to do that, then you find that over a long time your fund underperformed and you actually lost out on some returns. Regular versus direct funds is a very, very low hanging fruit. Till today, I think almost 30 to 40% of cities, अगर आप villages tier top 10 30 and cities के नीचे जाएंगे, though the number is much higher, but in the top 30 cities of India, this is a data by Amphi only, about 35 to 40% people still go and keep choosing regular funds. Nothing against taking right investment advice, nothing against an advisor charging you for that. But at some point, you have to choose to work a little bit and save yourself the returns. Information is available easily for you, so please take advantage of that and try to build a robust portfolio. So guys, this was my presentation. Thank you so much for sticking with me for 40 minutes. All of you have been very, very quiet. Any thought, any doubt, any questions, please ask. Happy to answer them. Om Prakash, my pleasure. Welcome. ठीक है. So with this, thank you so much. Have a great rest of the week and see you guys soon. See you guys very soon. Thank you.